And good morning to everyone, and welcome to this Christmas edition of Shed Adventures. It's the gap between Christmas and New Year where we sober up before we hit the New Year festivities. So I thought I'd better get up and do one more Shed Adventure for the year. So this is the Christmas edition before we hit 2023. So what are we going to talk about? Well, I was struggling a little bit, wasn't quite sure. I walked out the house and look, I came across this beauty. Now, you're saying it's an axe. What is he going to talk about? An axe. It's not an axe. Well, that's the axe. This shaft, it's about a third, believe it or not, of an English longbow. Indeed it is. Yeah. So I broke a longbow that I'd made, proper English longbow, and it's just fantastic yew wood. So I'd also broken the axe shaft, so the two came together, and we now have a beautiful yew shaft on this axe. But it's a great way, depending on how much you can see, of showing you the beauty and the cleverness of an English longbow. So I've been just rubbing back, this lives outside, because I want to show you the laminations on this, because this is what made English, but the Welsh will argue that they invented the longbow, so potentially the Welsh longbow, a battle winner. And all the stuff you hear about Agincourt and all the stories about English longbows, some of them are true, some of them are just stories, and I don't know if you can see, but what you have is two natural laminations. You have the light or lighter wood here, which is the outer wood when you get a stave of yew, and then the darker wood on this side. I think you can just about see it, and I can see this was such a shame. This was a beautiful bow, and you can see 50-50 all the way down here, the two colours. Now this bow never actually got finished, so the classic English longbow is a D shape, flat on the back and round at the front. So what's all the fuss about a yew bow in these two different woods? Well, if I got a knife and started stripping this white, this outer wood is really stringy. It loves being stretched, and you can nick it with your knife when you're making a bow and almost pull a length of it off. It's really stretchy. The inner wood, by its nature, is really good when it's compressed. So when you take a longbow and you bend it, and this would bend, like that, the outer wood wants to stretch in a bend, and the inner wood is happy to compress, and that's where you get the super power of an English longbow. So English longbow, 6 foot. I'll show you one. There we are, English longbow, and yes, look at the laminations on that. Look at the white and the dark. Now, when you make something out of wood, the wood talks to you and tells you what it's going to be. So this isn't a nice 50-50 division of dark and light wood, because you've got knots in the way, you've got whatever, and that's what caused the demise of that beauty. There was a knot in the wrong way. So it is what it is, and every bow is different. And this is quite a short bow for an English longbow, because it's designed for me, and I'm a short fella. I got the measurements of this off the Mary Rose. There's some longbows that they recovered off the Mary Rose. There's longbows that were found on Viking ships. Longbows go back to the 13th century, probably before, because people have worked out that you can get massive power. So the famous thing is Agincourt, I think. In the first wave, anything up to 5,000 arrows would have been let off. A great shooter, British shooter, he'll do 10 to 12 arrows a minute. If you're a French, nasty Frenchman, sorry French people, don't mean that, your crossbow will probably do 1 or 2 quirrels in a minute, probably 1. So the firepower and just the weight of fire of an English longbow was just immense. Range, people will say 250. I would say 200 meters really is a sort of battle winning range. When we learned to shoot in the army, you could shoot an SLR self-loading rifle out to 600 meters. You weren't effective at 600 meters. I don't care what people said. 300 meters effective range. So 300 meters effective range of the modern, in my day, modern British rifle, and you've got a longbow in the 13th century capable of engaging the enemy at 200. You know, shows you what a fantastic weapon this was. Myths and legend about this. Oh, there's hundreds of them. It penetrated the front breastplate of a mounted French knight. No, it didn't. And I'll argue anyone on YouTube who says it did. No, it didn't. What it would do is penetrate a horse. And if you've got 5,000 arrows flying through the air, and you've got any bits of exposed body, and you're not a knight, you're a foot soldier, or you're a horse, you're going to get several arrows inside you. I ride horses. Trust me, a horse with 5 arrows in it, he's not going to be a happy horse, and he'll be keeling over or running off in a different direction with his knight on board, causing absolute mayhem. So, no, you're not going to penetrate the frontal armour of a knight, but with the sheer power and force and a number, you are going to break up an attack of mounted cavalry with, you know, relative ease. And then what they did at Agincourt, when it all went pear-shaped, they dropped their bows, picked up their swords and their axes, and then went in to hack the French knights to bits. Other myths, the classic one, where did the old British V sign come from? Well, if the French caught a longbowman, we actually swapped prisoners in those days. It was all quite civilised. What they would do is chop his finger off, that finger. And the myth and the legend is that to show that they could still pull a bow, because you need all 3 fingers to pull a longbow, they would. Well, I would have thought it would have been the finger, but the myth is they put 2 fingers up to the French. Hey, I've still got my finger. Myth from the research I do, but it's become, I think, urban legend. The power of an English longbow, what do you need to pull it? 6 foot, full tilt English longbow, 150 pounds of pressure. What does that mean? It means that, and this isn't myth, when they find at Agincourt or some other Cressy or some other battle a longbowman, a British longbowman, they know when they found him because he's deformed. This shoulder, the bone of it, not because the muscles obviously all faded away, but his skeleton shows massive growth, strength in his arms. You can see that he's pulled a longbow. So this, I can't use it. I cannot pull an English longbow, full strength English longbow. There's much debate about whether you put the longbow out and pull the string, or whether you bring the string back and push the longbow out. I'll let the professionals on the YouTube channel tell you about that. But if I extend this, for this to fire properly, this has to come back to my ear. So full strength, I can't. And that's not 3 fingers with an arrow, that's my whole hand. I cannot fully power up this bow. You've got no idea the power that has, and what that will do to an arrow. And the armour-piercing arrow has a thing called a bodkin on the end. Anyway, so that's the English longbow, made out of yew. The next thing is all village churches had yew trees in so you could make longbows from them. Again, I think that's myth. The yew trees are in the churchyards, but if you were making longbows from them, they wouldn't have been there very long. It was so important to the British, and they'd knocked or hacked about so many yew trees in England that they actually put a tax that if you wanted to import goods into the UK at one stage, you had to bring in longbow staves. So a proper stave, 3 to 4 years for it to dry and mature, could make a couple of bows. So if you were bringing something from Portugal, I don't know, I'll make something up, wool or something, and importing it into England, as part of the tax to bring that in and land that in London, you'd need to supply 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 longbow staves as a tax, because we so much needed thousands of great British longbows, and we'd run out of wood in the UK. So yew trees in graveyards, yes. If you search churchyards, church locations, and the history of yew is attached to the Celts. Yew is attached to witchcraft, necromancy, all sorts of weird things. Lots of older traditions. Even kings and queens would have a staff that would be made out of yew. There's a lot of history in yew, witchcraft type history, and a lot of English churches are built on top of or on the same location as temples and various other places where people used to do their various religions. And no surprise, because yew was a tree that was considered linked to all these. There's lots of yew trees around these areas. There's also not stories, it's true, yew trees are poisonous. They're poisonous to cattle, so you don't really want them around the fields. So the churchyard is a good place. Also, you don't want cattle rooting around your churchyard, digging up your bodies. So again, yew trees are good for that. So yeah, myths and legends all developed around this marvellous device, the Great British Longbow. If you want to see how you actually make one of these, it would be several episodes. I would like to make another one. What I'll probably go and do is see if I'll go over to the churchyard, speak to the church warden, see if I can have a little hack of one of their trees and see if I can find a stave. Now, we couldn't use it as a bow because it needs years to dry, but we could certainly cut it up, have a look at these beautiful laminations in it between the heartwood and the surface wood on the bow, and just show you how you would get started if you want to make it. It's not that difficult, to be honest. What's quite scary is what you can make in your shed, because this is a real weapon. If you want to carry it in the car, for instance, you need to take the string off to be legal. And I stupidly decided, I have a shed at the top of the garden, just an old wood shed, and I stupidly thought I'll just ping a couple of arrows and they'll just stick into the wood and I can go and just have a little practice and a play with it. No, they went straight through the wood, straight through the shed. Immensely powerful if you actually got the strength to pull this thing. And they did actually, by law, make English longbowmen practice after church every Sunday, but I can't. And crikey, with 3 fingers, just using the tips, there's no way I can get that anywhere near full strength. So there we go, the Great British Longbow. It was a winner. I believe the history shows developed around the 13th, 14th century by the Welsh, and there was a lot of Welsh archers that came into the English army. So no wonder they brought their bows with them. But they could be traced back to many organisations and armies. As I said, they've been found in Viking longships. So that's that for the day. I hope you enjoyed a quick run through the English longbow. I wish everyone I'll thank everyone for joining the channel. Please like and subscribe. I'll wish you all a happy new year in a couple of days' time, and I'll see you again. It'll be 2023. Oh my word! Goodbye, everyone. Have a lovely new year. Bye bye now.